the 27 member states don't have a unified system on reporting these subjects, and we have at least three big areas. We are talking about space, civil aviation, and military. Well, at a personal level, understanding that some reports have come into light that show that there are some phenomena that we cannot explain. But I do have reports from people that work in institutions and professionals that work in some areas that correlate to this phenomenon, UAP. If we look at the security, this may not even be a security issue if we are looking in the prism of a technology that is more advanced and that doesn't really endanger the civil aviation. To have this open and broad coalition to debate this issue without fear, with a scientific base. If we really have these technologies that are human-made, we should be using them to help humanity to leap into a new paradigm, economic and social and even cultural paradigm, and not just use it for whatever purpose that doesn't seem clear and doesn't seem transparent because, well, no one knows.
The following is my conversation with Francisco Guerreiro. Francisco is a Portuguese politician currently serving as an independent member of the European Parliament for Portugal. Having been elected while standing as a candidate for People, Animals, Nature, Francisco is focused on numerous issues within the EU, including his work on the Committee on Budgets, the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, and the Committee on Fisheries, to name just a handful. However, Francisco caught the attention of many nationally with his work to try and highlight and form a joined-up scientific approach to monitoring UAP within the EU, a geographical area of politics where the subject has been absolutely non-existent. In this conversation, we'll discuss the stigma around UAP, UFO, amongst his colleagues, the work he's doing to create policies and legislation to combat the current apathy, and his own thought on what the phenomenon could represent and how it could impact humanity. A fascinating conversation with a passionate European champion of the subject of UAP, a really down-to-earth politician who is clearly passionate about science due to his upbringing, specifically crediting his mother for that passion. So, the following is my conversation with Francisco Guerreiro. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy today. If it's okay, I just want to kind of jump in with a kind of first question, really, and just find out a little bit about yourself. Where did your interest first peak? What was the first thing that kind of sparked your interest in the UAP, UFO subject?
Well, my mother was a biologist. She's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but she was a biologist, so she was a scientist, and so she always pushed me to be critical of the status quo and always have a scientific look on every phenomena. And so I think this is a characteristic that I have in all areas of knowledge. So when I look, for example, at the agriculture model, my standard of living, inequality, the economic model, all the phenomena that we see all over the areas that we can analyze, my look is always very scientific. It's always to try to find logical and rational explanations. And in the absence of those rational and scientific explanations with data, with scientific method, well, the question remains open, but then we are obliged to continue to search for more information and more data. And obviously, when we are talking about UAPs, this is a question that remains. We have new data on the table, and I think we should skip this period of undermining the scientific methods on these issues and really focus on having good data, good analyzing, monitoring, a unified system, for example, in Europe to really understand what is going on, and then have a transparency on this reporting and a debate on what might this be if we are clearly just talking about phenomena that we can explain perfectly, well, lovely. If not, well, what's happening and what should we do about it? Should we improve our technological developments and tools to understand better what are we analyzing? Should we have more data? Should we collect more testimonies? In reality, there's I think that was what brought me to this topic. It's this perspective of a scientific approach, but this is my approach to everything. So this is like normal, and it was shared by my mother.
Fantastic. So there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of engagement and interest, certainly from a perspective of a viewer, online and in the media in Europe. It seems to be very kind of American centric, and lots of talk in the American media and the American Congress about UAP, but hardly anything in Europe. And I wonder, do you get any sense as to why that is? Why we're not seeing a lot of interest in Europe, or perhaps
Yeah.
but we're just not seeing it?
Well, I think the debate is it was always very centered on the U.S. experience, even when we talk about phenomena or events that are very publicized, like Roswell or something like that. It's always on the U.S. It's always like a very dodgy understanding of what may happen, some industry military complex, and there's always a lot of build-up on those theories due to also the social and economic and political structure of the US that is very different from ours. And in the EU, although we have some reports of these phenomena, this is not a thing that comes to the public media, to the public debates, especially not to the political debates. Also, because I think there's a stigma associated to this. Politicians are afraid of just asking what for me it's the most rational question. Also, to put aside theories and statements that are not corroborated by science. What is happening, and how can we really monitor some of these events and have a better understanding of what is happening? If we have nothing to hide, and I think democracies should always try to be as transparent as possible. Obviously, we know there are some security and national security concerns, but if these are the cases, we also should be aware of such technologies because they are far beyond, at least from the data that we have and the testimonies that we have, they are far beyond the known technology that is available to even for the military. And so I think the political debate is not there yet because there's a lot of afraids from politicians to be connoted like some type of conspiracy theorist or something like that. But again, my approach as a citizen, as a politician, is always this approach of scientific base, of scientific understanding, also bringing more people into debates, some agency professionals, more scientists, so we can assess how can we have better tools to understand these phenomena, how can we better monitor it, how can we have more data on these issues, and then how can we assess what it is and how can we report it and how can we open the debate on these topics without that cloud of dodginess that sometimes or most of the times unfortunately surround these topics. And also I think these topics have that cloud because there's no transparency, there's no clear answers, there's not a clear method on analyzing these issues, especially in the EU. For example, you have 27 member states. We had 28 in the beginning of the European mandates, but the United Kingdom left, and now they are facing the economic repercussions of that, unfortunately, because they are entering a recession. But the 27 member states don't have a unified system on reporting these subjects, and we have at least three big areas. We are talking about space, civil aviation, and military. Military could be more difficult because it's mainly competence of the member states, but civil aviation is already mixed competences between national member states and the European Union, and also space. And so, at least at these two levels, we could have a harmonized approach and some methods and some scientific path to analyze what is being reported by some professionals of these areas on this phenomena, and we don't have it. That's one of the key issues that also led me to start the debate and start the conversation, and also trying to assess how can we scientifically improve our legislation and our um, monitoring standards to analyze these phenomena.
Yeah. So what work are you looking into at the moment? So we've seen some clips of you sort of pop up on the internet where you've kind of proposed UAP type legislation. Is there is it a legislation that you're looking at, or a policy change, or what is it you're trying to bring in?
Well, there's several paths that we can take. It's more like a political leadership, and on that case, unfortunately, I'm still the only one. But I hope that in the nearby future, more colleagues can join this conversation, and also in the next mandate, I think it would be very relevant to have this open and broad coalition to debate this issue without fear, with a scientific base, with understanding how can we improve regulations in the European Union to have this monitoring system. Again, my main concern is for us to really have this harmonized and uniform monitoring system in the EU, so we can have the data, so then we can have the reporting done correctly by professionals, also in a safe space with credibility, and then the overall report on what are these phenomena, and how can we improve or not this monitoring system, or we continue to not know what some of these phenomena are. And so we have several legislations. For example, we are debating the European Space Law. That is a proposal that is being made by the European Commission that has some characteristics regarding safety on space that I think can have an approach of installing this monitoring system using some agencies that are already in the European Union, like the European Space Agency, for example, with a specialized team of scientists. It's a possibility, but we also have some regulations that already open the door for this type of reporting. That is for example, the EU regulation on civil aviation. They already have some sort of reporting system that allows this kind of testimony to be shared. But again, I also talked to some professionals, and it's not a clear, easy way for them also to feel safe reporting this, and also that they feel that it has a continuum. So they report, it is analyzed, and it is gathered, and then, well, it has a political repercussion. So obviously this might concern security. This regulation of civil aviation is mainly on security issues, and obviously these are not yet a bigger topic. So if we analyze the data that these entities have, it doesn't represent these testimonies a major or any threats. I think for two reasons. First, because the testimonies don't reach the majority, don't really reach these institutions, so they got lost in the process. And some because simply professionals are afraid of having some backlash on reporting this. But again, if we look at the security, this may not even be a security issue if we are looking in the prism of a technology that is more advanced and that doesn't really endanger the civil aviation, because it's far away, but there are reports that they exist. So again, uh, besides speculation, I think there are some gaps that we could fill on this regulation. So a revision of the civil aviation regulation may also open the door for this monitoring system, which will also improve. And I think that's one of the key elements of this change, this future change, would help professionals in civil aviation. to be more concrete, to have a specific place for them to report that they knew that that could be followed in a pipeline in a transparent way, in a credible way, also helping them to not being jeopardized, because, well, we know that these questions still have a karma associated, some connotations, and some professionals don't feel safe reporting something that's through their experience they cannot understand. And I think we should help these professionals because they have thousands of hours, hundreds of hours of flights, and they want just to have a transparent way of reporting these issues. And so at least these two areas, so the European space law could be a possibility, or the revision of the civil aviation regulation could also be an open door. I made three questions to the European Commission. One of those that was in the late 2023 was already replied. This can be checked also in my website of the Parliament. So when you go to the European Parliament, if you look Francisco Guerreiro, you have on the right the questions that I ask the Commission, and the reply is also transparent. So all the work that I do is transparent. All the MEPs also, when they make questions to the Commission or the Council, it's transparent. And I think this topic should also be transparent. And the other two questions that are related to the space law and to the EU civil regulation were made, but I still don't have a reply because there are too many questions to the Commission. They take time, it's normal. So we will probably have some replies in the upcoming days / months. And the intervention that you talked about, it was one intervention that I made in the plenary, talking about the need for us to upgrade this European space law with this monitoring system. That could be an option, and for me it's the most obvious one. Also having into consideration that if we do this, it has to be very scientific, it has to be very transparent, and we have to involve a lot of actors. So this cannot be a top-down decision. It has to include agencies, professional syndicates, probably. We really need to have a frank, open, scientific debate on the issue, and then we have the monitoring system, and then we analyze the data, and then we arrive at conclusions. I think that would be the most efficient way for us to tackle the confusion that sometimes arises from internet and from some correlations that are a bit far-fetched.
What kind of reaction do you get from your colleagues? Because it's still there's still a lot of stigma attached, isn't there? It's still quite a kind of taboo subject in some circles. Are you gaining support from your kind of colleagues in the EU, or do you find that they're still kind of see this as a kind of fringe topic?
Oh, it is totally fringe, and the majority of my colleagues are too occupied on their national elections or European elections on their national member states. And obviously, this is not, to be honest, it's not the most sexiest topic to have when you are trying to be related. Although I think that if you look again through scientific lens, this is just another topic as any other, and will also bring transparency to a topic and a methodological way of approaching this topic that's we never had. And I think also by the examples that are being shown in the US, that the Congress and some congressmen and women are uniting from both parties, the two parties that exist in the US. For us, is weird for a country, for a democracy, just to have two parties. But again, looking at that reality, it's a bipartisan approach, which I think also makes it more credible, helps people come in public, scientifically talk about the subjects, also including the scientific community. There's a lot of scientists that are that have a huge reputation. They are very known for their work in several science fields that are also talking about these issues and the possible ramifications of such subjects. And I think this is the way to go. So unfortunately now I don't have a broader support, but I'm not even concerned about that because I think that this is a slow work that takes time, and I'm opening the doors for further debates, for further conversations, for further analysis. And I've been talking to several institutions, to several professionals, to some colleagues, but yes, it's a fact that there are still some afraid of being the face or one of the faces that talks about these issues. But again, if we live in fear, I think we are not making the best of our lives and the best of the opportunities that we have, at least in my perspective, as a politician, that is to be open, be transparent, not having afraid of talking about any subject in a very credible and scientific way. So my approach to this topic is the same that I have for every topic that I work on. And so I think that should be always the parameters that guide us, so we avoid this kind of dodgy connections that unfortunately happened. I know that in the days that we live, there's always a possibility of misinformation, fake informations. But well, it's what it is. I prefer to sleep at night with my conscience at ease, that I made the work that I feel that is necessary. Also, uh, to as a society, so that we really need to debate some issues, and we should not be afraid of debating them, or else a small elite may condition the narrative on the subject. And thus, if we have an open debate, very scientific approach, more people can engage, and these topics are not owned and pushed by small minorities. May those be corporate, military, political, uh, whatever you feel that is controlling the narrative. And I think that's also democracy. The more we talk, the more we debate, the more we open the doors to credibility, to the scientific methods, to criticize even our own actions, and understanding that in some way that we could just go that way or the other way. I think it's the best approach that we can have, and especially on this topic.
We don't often get the opportunity to speak to kind of politicians about what they kind of know and what they know and what they're aware of. And I think quite often I know that there's that kind of, you've got to kind of protect kind of certain interests, and there's security related issues. And so people are kind of cautious about what they say, even if they have heard bits and pieces. So I'll ask you the question,
Mhm.
but I am conscious that you may not be aware, or that you may have some information, but you've not been able to corroborate it. Therefore, you don't want to say until it's corroborated. So I do understand that.
Yeah.
But are you aware of any? Are you aware of any kind of projects, say reverse engineering or collection projects or anything like that in kind of Europe, EU countries, or in Portugal, for example? Are you aware of anything, or has anything been raised to you? Any whistleblowers come forward to you, or anything like that?
No.
No. Okay, well that was an easy one. Can I?
Yeah, but I do have reports from people that work in institutions and professionals that work in some areas that correlate to this phenomenon, UAP, that they have serious doubts and they don't know what they saw. And that poses the question, if people that, for example, fly, and they are professionals on these areas and they have thousands of hours of being work of working in the skies and flying, and they know all about the technology that exists, on even the possibilities, the physical possibilities of technology at that level. If they have doubts and they are willing to ask more questions, and even they feel that we should analyze what it is, even if it's let's put it into consideration that is technological, human developments, that is military, even that, I think it should be debated, because from what was shared to me, these are technologies so advanced that open to many questions. And if we live in democracies, we should at least try to understand what they are, also to avoid what I said before, this kind of correlations and misleading theories, and well, but concretely, when you talk about reverse engineering technologies, special projects, I don't know. And obviously, because we work differently here in the EU than in the US. The US is a federation, and so they have a huge military industrial complex. Their budget is bigger than all the other military combined in the world. So it's a total different reality. And here we are not a federation, and so our union is composed by several institutions, and the military is under the command of each member state. Also, we have obviously we have military agreements like NATO. We have cooperation between countries on military exercises and exchange of information, but on these topics, we don't have a unified approach. Even if you talk about civil or space, although we are more interconnected on those two levels, so civil and space. Uh, there's still no monitoring system, so it's difficult for us to analyze the data. But concretely, I don't have any information on that. But again, I'm one of several people that work on these topics, so probably other may have, but well, it's not up to me to make considerations or things that I don't know. And that's my main thing. If we don't know, if there are reports or at least there are testimonies, we should analyze them in a credible way, even if it's to, in the end, say, okay, this is nothing.
Yeah. Look, I like to ask people, and it is quite a speculative question, and not everybody likes to answer, and I appreciate that not everybody does. But I'll ask the question anyway. Do you get?
Sure.
Has your opinion kind of been guided in one particular direction? Has it narrowed as to what this phenomenon is, what the UAP represent? Have you kind of got a? Are you leaning towards one thing, or are you just kind of I'm waiting for the data and I'm going to keep it kind of completely open-minded? What's your position?
At the personal level?
Yeah, personal level.
Well, at the personal level, understanding that some reports have come into light that show that there are some phenomena that we cannot explain. We have to open the doors to two questions. First, if they are explainable and they are human technologies, there's something happening. There's a technological leap that is so far ahead that something happens, and we do need to question what that technology may help humanity on facing crises that are existential, for example, the climate crisis, and also social inequality. And obviously, for me, that's a question of being Democrat. If you really have these technologies that are human made, we should be using them to help humanity to leap into a new paradigm, economic and social and even cultural paradigm, and not just use it for whatever purpose that doesn't seem clear and doesn't seem transparent, because, well, no one knows. And so we only assume that it's for military purpose. And so if it's man-made, I have serious doubts that this technology is benefiting all. And it can even increase the inequality that already exists in the world. That's technological. By the technology that we have today, we can solve every problem that exists: climate crisis, inequality, scarcity of water, food, everything that we have as a humanity. Obviously, we are not going to arrive at a perfect state, because there's no such thing. But the major basic necessities of humanity, we could easily arrange to be how do I say, worked on with the technology that we have. So housing, foods, water, everything. So technological is what it is. And the other part is, if it's not human made, because we have to question, and then with the data we arrive at some conclusions. If it's not human made, well, that's one of the most interesting questions that we have as humanity. If it's not, what it is, and what are the repercussions, good or bad. Even if we have bad repercussions, I think we should we should not be afraid of uniting ourselves, and trying to analyze what can we as humanity do to respond to this phenomena, even if it's a less good thing, or if it's something that we don't comprehend. Well, we have philosophy, we have scientists, we have well, all the citizens, I think, should be involved in such debate, because it is also questions what it is to be human, what it is to be in this universe, what is our role as humanity. And so I think the only way that we should continue this debate is through scientific methods, transparency, openness, and then as much as we can, as much as we know, the more data we have, well, the path continues, and we continue to understand what can we do and how can we reinvent ourselves as humans and as humanity to really face the challenge that we have. May those be just human and upgrades on our democratic process because this technology is human made. Okay, fine. So we really have to find purpose to these technologies that are better just, for example, for military use, or the continuation of the perpetuation of a small elite that has the concentration of wealth and power. Or if it's not, well, what does this represent to ourselves, to humanity, and how can we, in a good or less good way, face this challenge also as a collective? Because if that is the case, I think the one of the purpose that we have as humanity is to be more united. And well, but always have a very scientific and critical approach on this, because we live in an era of misinformation, artificial intelligence. So we also should not be naive of the things that are shared and the data that is being generated. So also on that level, well, we should go very carefully, very openly, very transparently, so everyone knows what we are doing, and the best that can be easily checked by everyone. If we are dodgy, if we are not very transparent, I understand some questions of security, perfect. But overall, I think this path should always lead us to more answers and solutions than the other way around.
Francisco, I'm conscious of your time. I really appreciate you talking to me. It's been fascinating. Can I just ask lastly, where if people wanted to follow you and see your work and kind of see this subject grow in EU, where would be the best place for people to follow you and to kind of see this progress?
Well, on my social media, if you follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, or on Facebook, I'm in all of those networks, but probably the Twitter is or X, how you call it now. Or X or Instagram. I think they are the most easy ones. But bear in mind that I also work in several other topics, so you might end up debating animal welfare, ecological climate crisis, housing crisis, economic inequality. So that should also be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very busy man. So I'll let you get back to it. Thanks again, and hope to speak to you again soon in the future.
Sure. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.